Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 84 of Purple Hyacinth called Hollow Hope. And today we have Fwootloops and Shivii, and I will let them introduce themselves. They are big Purple Hyacinth characters in the fandom and the Discord server, so I'm very excited that they're on, and take it away with your introductions.
Shivii, would you like to go first, or should I?
Go ahead.
I guess I'll go first. Hello, I'm Fwoot. Technically Fwootloops, but people call me Fwoot. I've been reading Purple Hyacinth since it came out on Webtoon, and I've been in the Discord since like season 2 premiered. And yeah, I spend a lot of my time theorizing and just thinking about it and having a lot of conversations with people on the Discord about Purple Hyacinth, and Shivii is one of them.
Hi, I'm Shivii. So I found Purple Hyacinth like right around COVID. So I was just a hermit and I was kind of burnt out on manga. So I decided to check Webtoons again after a while, and I found Purple Hyacinth, which is like a diamond in the rough for me, something that changed my life. And I didn't join the Discord until about August, I think. And by then season 2 had hit off and there was just so much chaos, so many theories, so many amazing people, and I've just never been more thankful to be here now. It's helped me get into writing again because I one day want to be an author.
So beautiful. And just Shivii or Shivii?
Shivii, it's either way. It's either way.
I'm so sorry. I've been pronouncing it Shivii or Shivii this entire time.
Yeah, people do either way. It's a name that's been around for so long and people flip-flop between the two.
Awesome. Well, thanks. So just a quick recap of last chapter. Last chapter was like the crazy, hilarious bar chapter where Kim acted like an idiot. So that's basically all we need to say. I think everyone can remember that chapter based on that alone. And it ends off with Kieran, Lauren noticing that Kieran's leaving. So she starts off by asking him, Kieran, where are you going? And he's like, oh, close to midnight, got to play before I turn into a pumpkin. And, many people have noted, like, it's in black. Is he actually going to turn into a pumpkin or whatever, his carriage?
I really like that he just did that little joke, that little jab, because, like, he doesn't want to run Lauren's fun. And he tried to sneak out, obviously, but she's just, for being the blindest of all, she really did notice him at the right time.
She's the blindest of all, except when it comes to Kieran. Sometimes she's still the blindest of all.
We'll get to that.
As we'll get into later. I really like how he made the Cinderella reference, because as we see in earlier chapters, he is a bit of a bookworm. And so the Cinderella reference, it's a fairy tale, it's a book. Like, he probably grew up with a fairy tale and still like reads fairy tales because he had the Secret Garden book.
He's a little fantasy nerd.
It's the escapism.
I agree. I'm a super literary person and like classics are my favorite. So when I saw all those books in his library, I was like, oh, Kieran, a man after my own heart, except for the assassin part. But
something to note that's really interesting, but F actually shared some of her scripts for those episodes, and it says in the script to have books drawn everywhere, just like all over the place. Though I think Soph did tone it down a bit, but like that's what F originally wanted, I believe. It's just Kieran, a bookworm.
I love that. Yeah, my husband's a big bookworm too, and that's definitely something I love about him. We have a lot of books in our house.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. So I love that Lauren, walks after him. She's like, oh, are you leaving without saying goodbye to your coworkers? And she, she has like, oh, it's very rude of you. And that smile that she has on her face is like this very wistful, kind of loving smile. And to me, like the whole fact that she didn't want him to leave, I feel like she was drawn to him and she wants to spend more time with him. Did you get that reading?
I think Shiv and I, we talked, and I think what a lot of people have been thinking and what we were talking about like last night when the episode dropped is this is more on Kieran's side, but Kieran knows he doesn't belong here. And I think he might have thought Kieran can't form any genuine relationships with these people in the APD because none of them know that he is the Purple Hyacinth. If they ever did find out he was the Purple Hyacinth, the relationship would probably be dropped. And so he doesn't allow himself to be attached to any of them. And that's why the relationship between Kieran and Lauren is so important, because both are there on their own terms. Both know, like, he knows she's an officer in the APD, and she knows that he's an assassin, and not just any assassin, he's the Purple Hyacinth himself. And they both understand the stakes there, and they both understand that, like, what they are risking by being around the other. And so it means that it's one of the few genuine relationships that Kieran can have with Lauren. And I think Lauren recognizes that. And even despite that, she wants Kieran to live a little more. And that's why she wants him to stay.
Interesting. Yeah, I viewed it more as like a selfish move on her part, that she wanted to be around him, but that's very nice that she, you know, if she was looking out for him, that's even nicer.
I also think that it's good that she's looking out for him in terms of his acting, because from a very realistic point of view, him not saying goodbye to his coworkers and just like peacing out, that, you know, both of them aren't very good at acting lately, or if ever. So there's really no hope for them.
Yeah, especially with the pretending to be dating. Like, maybe you should kind of pretend to like each other a little more in public.
Yeah, he's not that cute.
What?
As you,
oh, yeah, I know what
Shivii.
the Lauren said. Right, I know, right?
And these next few, Kieran he's smiling, you know, he's like, I don't belong here, but he's just like lighthearted about it. And
Not a lie.
And it's not a lie. But it's just, yeah, it breaks my heart.
Yeah, and the fact that he's even able to talk like that to Lauren and be open like that, I mean, that's pretty significant. That's like a level of trust and intimacy that he wouldn't have had a few weeks ago with her.
Yeah, something that's been really great, or a bit tragic about season 2, is that they've had to completely rebuild the relationship after the events that happened in season 1 and that betrayal. And so they're slowly beginning to trust one another again. And something that's really great is that Soph and F, they're not rushing it. They're not laying it heavy on like a romance aspect. They're just trying to get them back to being friends and being able to trust one another. And that's something I feel like we don't see enough. And so I'm really happy seeing it here.
Yeah, I mean, this episode honestly like brought them closer than I thought they would even act before. Like all with everything that they said to each other. I didn't expect it to be this soon, because Soph and F have been so slow with the relationship development.
Yeah, we definitely have gotten a lot more progress within just a few, you know, days. I don't know how many, the timeline is so messed up now, but
there's like 2 extra weeks in December.
yeah, exactly.
You guys saw Webtoon Hattie's timeline?
Yes, a few months ago
worst.
we actually had our own.
Yeah,
I think Shivii was there for it. We were just screaming over the timeline.
It just didn't make any sense. And then every time we'd see a few days later on these episodes, it would just send more panic. Like, where are we? What day is it?
Like, okay, once it reaches Harvey's death, everything just goes complete. Everything just spirals. Like, we get a few dates, like we see a few dates on like Harvey's file, and like when Onslow checked in to the hotel, but stuff doesn't line up. If that was like it was like, I don't know, it was like mid-December then, and it was like mid-December around the Carmine arc, and so it didn't fit. It doesn't fit.
I was like, I was going to do it too. I'm like, why bother replicating the work of the greats? I know it doesn't make sense. I'm not wasting any brain space on it.
It's just the way it is. But they're progressing at a very rapid rate, and that's good, because there's a lot going on and they have a lot to do, and this just needs to get past. Like, they just need to move forward.
Yeah, there's no use dwelling on the past, as ironic as that is saying about Lauren. They do have more important matters on their hands.
Well, I do think they're going to have to talk about it. I'm assuming they will at some point, because you can't pass through something like that without addressing it. So I hope they will. There's a lot they could need to talk about, so that could be one of them. But yeah, so he says they're not really my coworkers, and even less my friends, which is sad. And you know, he wants to go. He says, I'll see you around, but Lauren doesn't want him to go. And she has this like very distressed look on her face, like kind of concerned for him. And she stops him. It's like this really cool move where he's about to head out the door, and she puts her hand right above his on the door. It's That is romantic, I have to say. It struck me as romantic.
Something Shivii, I think you pointed this out, something that's really cool is that on the panel where he says they're not really my coworkers and even less my friends, there is a line separating them. It starts with the little lantern thing and the line just goes down. There's the door line that cuts in between them, and then the floor is striped, meaning that there's more lines, and they're just kind of like there's a barrier between them still.
And then the light at the top. There's
Yeah.
always like interesting things to see about like how Soph says that it means absolutely nothing, but I don't take her word for anything.
Yeah, so putting like white lilies
She's a
next to
troll.
Kieran does not mean nothing, because white lilies mean death,
Good
and
troll.
around Kieran that's never good. I think also the panel that you talked about where she looks like very concerned, one of my notes was that I thought Lauren was thinking about Dylan in this moment, because Kieran, like Dylan that we see in 49, is about to leave, and it's just there's a parallel there, and although it's not like exactly the same, it's still pretty similar. And my note says that her expression shows a level of concern that we don't see very often from her, especially regarding Kieran. And so we do know that with the events that have transpired in the past like 10 episodes, especially when we got the reveal that Abel did know the kids in the car, and it's obvious that she thinks it's Dylan. Dylan has been on her mind recently, and so I thought that maybe she was remembering that in that moment, and she didn't want Kieran to leave, because last time when Dylan left, he ended up dead, and she blamed herself for it.
Yeah, she definitely has this like a panic, which is, yeah, I agree. It might seem more than it's called for.
It's definitely a significant panel. Like it's very riveting. The way that it's not desperate, but it's some kind of worry, you know, like it just like she can do something and she wants to be able to do it, because before when she didn't do anything, bad things happened. So
Well, yeah, Lauren, obviously she's a person who like tries to have control and micromanage everything in her life. I mean, honestly, like one big thing about Lauren is that you know, she blames herself for Dylan's death or supposed death, and I just don't get it. Like, I'm like, Lauren, you were like a little kid, you know, but she just has to take that burden upon herself and just feels responsible for everything.
I think the reason she blames herself for that death is because she knew that she heard the lie, meaning that, and she knew that the train wouldn't be leaving, and she was a kid, so like obviously like she wouldn't have realized something was up, but like she did notice there was something. And so when Dylan went back, and then the train station, and then the explosion happened and everything clicked, she blames it on herself because she knew something was off. Like she knew there was something not quite right, and so she could have stopped him. And again, like you said, she was a kid, and we don't really expect kids to like stop this sort of stuff, but it doesn't matter to Lauren because she still feels responsible for it, and she's spent the past years feeling responsible for it and just probably mentally beating herself up over it.
And that's her personality, for better or for worse, bearing everything on her shoulders. So here, I love how she tries to basically comfort Kieran and reassure him. She says, you know, you don't have to go because of me. I know you won't do anything. And she's just harkening back, like to just show him that she trusts him, because, you know, she remembers how basically she accused him of, obviously like killing everybody. And then also she was afraid in the past that he would harm her coworkers. And now she's telling him like, no, I trust you now that you won't do that. So that's like a big step. The fact that she has trusted him, and she's telling him that she trusts him because she wants to comfort him. And I was like, wow, that is so beautiful and sensitive of her.
Yeah, this is really everything for them and for the fans. And when she says, I know you won't do anything, that is a lot of trust for like what had happened prior. I mean, it's just like she's just him helping her with Chow's case has changed Lauren's heart, because this is so important to her, not only to her detective, status, but to an innocent woman.
It's interesting how you read it, because I read it as I know you won't do anything, like kind of like a stutter, like a hesitation. But I like how you read it. You're like, I know you won't do anything.
Yeah, I read it
more
as
direct.
like she's very confident that she knows that he won't harm anyone or do anything. Because, I mean, he's held true to his promise and he's a man of his word.
I was actually nervous when he went out last episode. I was nervous that this episode was going to be a bloodbath and then he was going to do something crazy. And her saying this honestly gets me a little worried. The fact that she's like, oh, don't worry, I know you won't do anything. And, you know, throughout the whole episode, she's like, I trust him. I am actually worried that we're being set up to be disappointed, where for whatever reason, he'll have to, or he'll choose to renege on his promise and harm her coworkers or some, you know, other people that she thought he wouldn't harm. And I'm nervous. Do you guys think that will happen?
Yes.
I do feel like there may be a twist with Kieran sometime in the future, but I think what is holding me back from fully being on board this series is that it would set them back at ground zero again, and which wouldn't be that. And although like maybe a small thing to like separate them might be good, maybe in the end of season 3, like it's a climax, the stakes need to be really raised. But at this point right now, what's most important is rebuilding their friendship rather than testing them over and over again to the point where it's irreparable.
Yeah, I don't think he's the betrayer. I never felt that, or I never got that, even when the episode came out. It's just too obvious. He's already done. I mean, if anything, there's a lot of betrayers, but it depends on what kind of betrayal you're talking about. Because, you know, one thing that could come and bite him back in the ass is what he said to Bella, and it's technically not a lie. But Lauren just has to trust him and know who he is and believe that he has to put up a front in order to say these things in front of Bella, and that, you know, if anything does become a rift between them, it's just miscommunication, I feel like.
Always the miscommunication.
Right. Which, again, this episode, as we'll see later, was like, whoa, it was a big breakthrough in communication. It wasn't like 100%, but it was like way more than I expected them. But we'll get to it when we get to it.
There's so much in this episode.
Oh yeah, so much.
You know, the next panel we see Lauren tightening her grasp on the door rail because she's kind of anxious about what she's going to say next. And what she tells him is, she says, actually, I've meant to, and she's again stammering out of nerves, I meant to thank you for helping me with Chow's case. And she's looking down and not at him while she's saying this, I think, because she can't look him in the eye. He's not looking her in the eye either. So she's very uncomfortable with that level of emotional intimacy. And I think she's uncomfortable thanking people because she's a very independent spirit. She's used to doing everything on her own. She doesn't collaborate with other people, for better or for worse. Again, like, it's a good thing that she's so independent, but she also does not communicate with people, doesn't collaborate with people. She's missing out on a lot of, I think, information and help because of that. So she's uncomfortable thanking him. What?
Yeah. Her pride is just so high.
Yeah, her pride is wounded when she has to thank him.
He did do all the work though, and she got all the credit.
Yeah.
Still am upset about that.
Yeah.
Kieran is saving. I need Lauren to save Kieran for once. Like, Kieran has saved her so many times. Like, Rhea got the Chow case, like when he saved her with Onslow, when he saved her like when she was about to be sliced by those like bodyguards on that rooftop, like back in season 1. What else? There's been so many times. He saved her from Bella.
Yeah, Bella's, yeah.
Yeah. I need Lauren to save Kieran for once. Like
that would be great. Yeah, that's always, you know, people have, like, a lot of women have this trope of the man saving them. My trope since I was like 5 was like the woman saving the man. I was like, I want to save the poor man.
Yeah.
Don't even ask. It's my weakness.
Damsel in distress, Kieran.
Doing this, right.
I just feel like when we do get Lauren saving Kieran, it's going to be him in chains, hung up, bleeding, and almost dead.
Oh, stop. No, you can't. We've already seen enough of that in the past. Oh, gosh. Like, what that is, by the way, that's torture porn. When I first heard the term torture porn, I was like, whoa, that is amazing. That is such a good term. So, yes.
Well, you know, it's so funny because a long time ago on Discord, on the server, we were like waiting for Kieran panel of him shirtless, but we joked we said it would be him being tortured, and that was the only time. And then F supplied, I think she was like lurking on the server and saw us talking about it and then like purposely did that.
I'm pretty, oh, sorry.
Oh no, go on.
Back on Purple Garden, people were talking about chloroform and like the best way to kidnap someone and like knock them out. And F ended up seeing it and was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to steal that for Purple Hyacinth." And what would you know about like 20-ish episodes later, we have Sandman kidnapping Lauren. And so if for that plot twist and that cliffhanger, you're gonna have to blame the old server and the people on there for that. Because they inspired F, and yeah, we were left hanging for a week because of it.
I know. Oh my gosh, those were riveting. Those episodes, I was on the edge. I had at that point stored up a whole bunch. So I read a lot at once, and I was like, I don't read action or like horror or any of that kind of stuff. I'm very like
Slice
flower.
of life.
Yeah,
like
in my
that.
like my reading, like good stuff only. And I was like sitting there, like, and my heart was pounding. I never have my heart pound when I read. It's like, what? So it was very exciting.
Yeah, I think it was the episode that 𝗥𝗍 died. The music had my blood boiling, like my heart was just beating so fast, and I was just, even though I knew it was coming, I was just like,
Oh, I didn't expect that. Did you think that 𝗥𝗍 was gonna die like that?
for sure.
No.
I totally thought he was gonna die by Bella.
I didn't
100%.
think he was going to die. I thought he would end up end up climbing the ranks and end up being like the big bad.
What?
But no, he was just yeeted.
He's like
in the
half
middle
a
of-
brain cell.
I know, but like I don't know. He's like Lauren's rival. You would think that like they would like face
True.
off at the very end, and he would.
True. But also, she did hint from before that she was going to get rid of him. I mean, there was a lot of signs coming up to that
That's
she was going
true.
to get rid of him. And to be honest, Fleming's is probably the next to go. And then, oh God, don't even get me started on the whole Raphael thing.
Okay, yeah, we can talk about that. You know what? So at the end of every episode, I totally forgot to tell you guys, I'm gonna do bonus questions for Patreon, so we can do that for a bonus question if you want.
Cool.
Oh, dope.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry. I just want to add one last thing about 𝗥𝗍.
Oh boy.
And I think Shivii knows this. I was shocked when I saw 𝗥𝗍 killed because I'm actually like very convinced that he is the spy master.
Really?
She had a lot of good points.
Yeah. So although it's part of a bigger theory, which you can find on the Discord, but the gist of it was, this is part of it, is that 𝗥𝗍 was the spy master because we know that the spy master has been around since Allendale, and 𝗥𝗍 has also been around since Allendale. And I feel like it would just be like the biggest thing that none of us would have ever seen coming. And that's kind of the thing about PH, is that the plot twist makes sense, but in a way that you wouldn't have predicted them. So, and 𝗥𝗍 is just,
It makes sense
slimy.
because he was gone for a
Slimy.
while. He had a bunch of jobs, apparently. I mean, it's going to be really interesting because 𝗥𝗍 isn't out of the story. If anything, he's talked about more now than ever, now that he's dead.
yeah.
But it's like all the stuff that they're going to find come the future about like everything that he did. I think it's going to lead up to like the old mines, which could help them like find out where the dynamite is, where the nitroglycerin, everything about it. So I think them diving into his past is going to help them prevent any bombings from happening. So thanks, 𝗥𝗍.
Finally useful for once.
It's just an idea, but it's where he worked. So I feel like that's important if they keep bringing it up.
Yeah. They're also bringing a lot more attention, like as we were saying in the past few episodes, they're bringing a lot more attention to the 𝗥𝗍 and Chow case, which Lauren was on a year ago, and now it's about Lauren trying to like free herself of that and get Maria, who is Chow's wife, out of jail. And so there's going to, hopefully we'll see a lot more depth into that case and what happened there. And Kieran is obviously learning more about it, and so like Kieran, we will slowly be unraveling this mystery around Lauren.
Yeah, I was surprised when we had that like extra shot, like flashback of her helping him. Like, I didn't think that or like the additional information that we got about the interrogation, because I thought like that whatever information we had at first, like, okay, that's what it was. I didn't realize that there was more to it. So that was interesting to get.
There was always that question left unsaid of like how he got shot and how does that make sense to like the whole situation prior. And it was such a hole left unsaid for a while. And I can't believe we're just not getting that. It's a long ride.
Yeah, there's a lot of strings that have to be, like, loose ends that have to be tied up. Which is actually another question. I'm curious, how long do you think this story is going to go for? Like, how many seasons?
We have 3 seasons confirmed. A while, like 6 months ago, I've said that it might go up to 5, but right now 3 is most likely.
Yeah, and Soph said on the stream recently, it was pretty recent, like January, she said that it's still up in the air. It just really depends on like how fast they can get episodes out. Like there's going to be like a break in between, so how long does that last? Because if, you know, by season 3, that can be quite a bit of time. So if they decide on a season 4 or season 5, they're having to think about their own livelihoods and what they want to do for their futures. So
yeah. So obviously, like, she has other projects that she would want to move on from. I think she's talked about having a comedy series on Webtoon.
yeah.
And then F is a med student, so she's got that career that she has to also focus on.
It's also very interesting, like how authors combine, you know, what's their goal in life and if they're doing other stuff. So for sure. So if you want to go back to the episode, maybe.
Yeah, sorry. We get really
There
off
we
track.
go
I'm so
again.
sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's good, but you know, just a balance of both. So Lauren, you know, continues thanking him, and again, she's not looking him in the face; she's looking down, because it's really hard for her to. It's hard for her to like get over that ego of hers and like thank other people. And she's like, it means much more to me than you could know, which is again admitting vulnerability and like something personal. So very commendable that she's doing it. And you know, she's even like hiding her face. She's like the only bright spot in a very awful week, really. Haha. So again, a little bit of couching it with humor, but at the same time admitting that she had a very bad week, which is again being open with him. Love it.
It's really so cute. And Kieran, I know like he appreciates this so much. Really, she might be bashful about this, but like I think he appreciates this more than she knows.
Yeah.
They're looking into each other's eyes.
Aww.
And she says so genuinely, thank you, Kieran. And they're like right next to each other, and everyone's like, kiss, kiss.
Yeah.
I didn't think they were gonna kiss, but
No.
it sure looks nice.
I wish. But I'm patient.
Right?
Yeah. It's a little thing is that when she says genuinely and she's being honest, it's finally when they make eye contact, and it you scroll a few panels down. She removes her hand, the door opens, and she's crossed over the line that we mentioned earlier. She's now on Kieran's side, and there's no barrier between them.
So beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize it consciously, but yes. Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
She crossed over the light as well has a bit of a line there. It's also something to note, the panel of her crossing the line and stepping closer to him and the one prior. I recommend when the episode drops for free that you screenshot it and brighten it, or ask someone for like before it was rendered so you can see their expressions better, because it's really important if you can see their expressions. The one after, when Lauren steps closer to Kieran, is actually like a really sly smile. It's so funny. The one before, Kieran is actually smiling at her and she looks really concerned when he says they're not my friends. It's just a little thing to note, because the panels are really dark and you aren't really able to see their expressions.
Okay.
Pictures are in JPEG form though, so I'm zooming in now, and I think even if you did enhance it, it's a bit messy around the edges, so I'm not sure if you'll be able to see the smile.
Oh boy. Maybe, yeah. Well, on a computer, it'll probably be a lot better. Things always seem to be a lot better on my computer.
Also, who shut the door? She shut the door, right?
I think he just let go of it and it closed.
Yeah.
Oh, which is showing, you know, he's accepting what she's saying enough to commit to being there. Like he's not walking out anymore. Again, beautifully like symbolic, both for their relationship, besides for just the present moment. Oh, that's beautiful. That moment of them just shrouded in darkness, looking at each other, so close to each other. Definitely growing closer.
Finally, I love that we finally get panels of them far away so we can see them both. Usually it's like we don't see them standing next to each other very often. This also helps my theory that Kieran is 6 foot and not 5'9".
Wait, why? Because Lauren's height is confirmed?
I think
yes.
she's 5'7".
Lauren is
But she has heels on.
5'6". It was
Or
confirmed
5'6"?
by F on the other server.
She's
On the
got
old
heels
server.
on.
Yeah. They never decided on a Kieran height. Apparently he was 5'9" to 5'6". Or what? 5'9" to
5'9"
6
to
foot.
6 foot.
Okay, cool. I'm 5'6". My husband is 6'4". He's very tall. But yeah, so 6 inches apart in that picture you're saying. Okay.
Well, she's got the heels on, so I don't know.
Heels? I don't see any heels. That maybe
She's
that
I
got
think
some.
it was.
She
It
always
might be
wears
visible
heels.
in another panel. It's kind of hard
Yeah.
to tell.
Okay. So anyway, so going back to the fun in the bar, they're going crazy, and there's somebody, I don't think we know him, is saying
that's
hello.
Liam.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
so that's-
Liam.
Liam? I've been calling him Andrew this whole time.
Oh my god, that's Liam. He's from Life. He's from the other webtoon that Soap did.
That's why, because I was wondering who the blonde lady was in episode 80, and somebody was like, oh, her name is Grace. She's also from Life. I started reading Life. I didn't finish it. That's cool that she put some of their characters there.
Yeah, Andrew, Grace, Liam.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'll have to read it then for sure. Finish it at least. So he's on the stage, he's screaming, hello, weaklings, get your lily-livered asses over here for a drinking contest. Last one standing wins, which is not very safe, but whatever. That's kind of my only like one true objection is like, there's way too much drinking. Sorry, I'm a bit of a prude. I don't know. I don't want people dying, you know, of overdrink accidentally because they don't know like limits for alcohol. So anyway, it's just a word. You can die if you drink too much alcohol, people.
Yes.
So don't do that.
Alcohol intoxication is bad.
Mm. Yeah.
I love that Kieran, or I love that Lauren is just like gung ho on getting Kieran drunk. Like she's so ready to do this.
He's in this smirk and he has this totally nervous glance. And I think, by the way, and she's like, Kieran is joining. I wonder if the reason she wanted this was because she wanted to see Kieran loosen up and see what would come out of him when he was drunk.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the purple hyacinth.
More like, maybe, but more like, you know, not necessarily like talk about his feelings for her, but just like talk about himself more, or maybe spill some information. Although I don't think so, because Lauren's not really asked him about information. Like she hasn't probed him really. But I think, I don't know.
I think really she just wanted him to be a bit happy.
Yeah.
To have a good time.
To have some fun. Like live a little.
Yeah.
And she just literally drags him along. He's like, excuse you, mild panic, yeets him. And again, it's hilarious because he's, you know, the assassin, the murderer, the super powerful one. And she just manages to totally kowtow him, doesn't regard his will, doesn't ask him what he wants, and just like pushes him there. And he's just lets her do what she wants to him. He doesn't say no, he doesn't resist. Which I think is a little bit of an indication of like the fact that he's a bit of a simp for her. I think.
You know, he can be sometimes for sure. I think because she thanked him, he felt it would have been rude to leave after that. Like, but you know, her dragging him to go drink and potentially sing, you know, it's just like a part of him wants to do it. And
yeah, he doesn't,
that's why
he
I'm
doesn't want to ruin
happy.
the moment.
And
he saw them in the last episode. They were having fun. And it's not often that he gets to do something like that when he's like running across rooftops and murdering loon convicts. So like, you know, just time to relax among the chaos of it all.
Sweet and sad. And of course, at this very moment, Kim chooses to wake up. She's nestled against Will's chest, but she's like, oh, did someone say drinking contest? And poor Will, he's like, no, you misunderstood, go back to sleep. And he like smushes her face, which is so cute. And he tries to get her to stay, but you can't stop Kim from doing what she wants because she literally slips out of his grasp and runs. And she's like, your lieutenant is up for the challenge, everyone. So both of these men have been egged on by women who like them.
I love the little Kiwi here. They're just so adorable. He just go back to sleep, stay laying on my chest, no more drinking.
Will is hilarious. He's such a funny character. I'm a lot like Will, like in that I'm very straight-laced.
Poor Will. He's such a cinnamon roll.
Yeah.
Deserves better.
So now they're all sitting at the table looking quite hapless. We have Will, we have March, unknown person, Kieran, and Lucas. Right, do we know the person in the middle?
No, I think he's random.
Yeah,
Okay.
looks random.
Apparently he's a winner because I mean they for some reason either Will and Kieran tied and they both lost or
Yeah, we don't know exactly what, but like we see Lucas at some point standing up there. We see March singing, and Lucas behind him, and then Lila is looking at him with this cute little look in her
She's so
face.
cute.
Yeah, she clearly likes. Well, I guess theoretically she could be looking at March, but of course she didn't.
Poor March. I feel so bad for March. Like he's just like this wholesome dad. Like
Here's my question about March. March is so good. Do you suspect him of being bad?
yes,
Yes.
he's either gonna die or he's bad.
I mean, okay, the PS, like Phantom Scythe, they need spies in the police who can get rid of evidence. And March is a detective, and this has been going on for 10 years. March is decently old, so he has been in the APD probably for a while, and he's the head detective at their precinct. And so it is likely that March has been covering the tracks of Phantom Scythe members.
And he was at the funeral.
He was
Or-
also at the funeral.
I'm going to hold out for the goodness of humanity. I'm going to represent the optimistic side. Or March is just a really, really good guy, and he's going to be good throughout the whole series.
I hope.
I have more faith in Herman being a better person than I do in March.
Yeah.
That's saying a lot.
Same
I
though.
don't think Herman is evil. I think he's maybe very rigid, and I think he's got a slightly jealous, mean streak to him, but I don't think he's evil.
Yeah.
As presented. Yeah, what do you think about Herman?
He's just like, I think he's honestly just trying to live a good life, but I feel like some things have made him sour. Maybe he lost somebody.
Yeah, I have a theory that he lost Dana, that he was like actually he was like in charge of Dana at the time, which is Kim's sister.
Yeah.
And we know that she died, and it is theorized that she was a police officer because of the way that Kim talks about police officers in episode, what was it? 30, 31, one of the two. And so people think that Kim's sister was a police officer, and obviously she died. And so if Kim was still living in the 11th precinct at the time, it's likely that her sister worked in the 11th precinct, meaning that her sister would have worked under Herman. And so my theory is that Dana died under Herman's watch, and it made Herman really sour about it because it was just at the beginning of the Phantom Scythe, right? And so he probably didn't expect it, and I would guess that he was actually like kind of attached to Dana, like sort of like, you know, a second dad or something. Like we see March being dad to the characters. Herman was dad to like Dana. And Kim has a very suspicious moment in episode 46, I believe, where she's talking about spies. And so it may have been that her sister was a spy. Herman defended Dana when she was accused of being a spy because he didn't know she was a spy. And then when they finally got evidence that she was a spy, Herman found out, and it cost him the promotion. So that's why he's bitter. And Lauren, who's also pretty impulsive, like I would imagine Dana to be, reminds him Lauren reminds him of Dana, which is why he demoted her, because if Lauren was still a detective, she probably would have also have died by now. If that makes any sense, I'm sure it doesn't.
It does.
That's totally possible, and it would also explain why he's so straight-laced and why he's so suspicious. You know, he doesn't want any sign of like corruption or double agency in his police precinct, so that would explain that. But yeah, this is very interesting. This is what I don't do at all. I don't do any of this speculation, but it's very interesting to hear it.
The whole thing with Harvey, though, he was very calm during that. So I think he's very familiar with the Golden Viper and the cases that were like prior to that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like maybe Herman has a soft spot for Lauren, but he just doesn't show it right. He's probably worried for her. You know, her being reckless, her going off on her own, doing all these things, trying to find information and answers will get her killed. And like a part of him would, I mean, how would you feel in his shoes if you let the niece of the chief of police die on your watch?
Yeah, definitely.
That's stressful.
Well, I'm glad. I was never like of the hate Herman party, so I'm glad that you two are sympathetic towards Herman.
We are,
I try to see both sides,
we are a
even
very
with
small
Will's dad.
minority.
Yeah, you know, I don't mind strict personalities. I'm pretty strict myself, so ask my children. But
You have to be.
Yes, otherwise nothing will get done in life.
I mean,
They'll just
I've
sit
read
there and loiter all day.
I've written an essay defending Stefan of all people, and so like defending Herman isn't too far-fetched for me.
Okay, well that would be cool. I would like to read that essay. So okay, so Lily, I keep saying Lily, sorry, because the author of Midnight Poppyland is Lily, so I have that in my head. But Lila, Lila
She
is
looks like a
gazing.
lily.
What? Yeah,
She looks like a lily.
she's cute. So Lila's gazing, you know, tenderly at presumably Lucas, probably not March, and you know, Willa and Kieran seem to be the last one standing. They're both drinking, and Lauren's also enjoying it. She has this really cute expression on her face. I think she's like, oh my god, I can't believe they're doing this. Kim seems to be cheering them on next to her, her foot on the table. And yeah, they have a singing contest in the end. I would have loved to hear them singing and have some audio of this moment.
I thought they were going to, honestly. But it's so funny because all I can think about is Soph's note now, that my heart will go on, the terrible recorder, me playing in the background. So now when I read this, I'm only going to play that while I read it. It's going to be terrible.
We'll need a PH animated series to hear them sing.
Yeah. I love the parallels here. Like with Lauren looking at Kieran and Will, and the prior episode of Kieran staring at Kim and Lauren. It's just both of them are going through like a happy moment, like a glimpse, like a spark of happiness, and then like trauma.
Right. Of like what a normal life. They're both looking at each other very tenderly, you know, kind of seeing each other in their goofy elements. And yeah, it is very sweet.
Same brain.
Yeah, like he enjoyed her, you know, catching all those cups, and she's enjoying him singing. It is really cute. Little smile on her face. Falling in love and you don't even know it. Yeah. But then she finds herself, because she's Lauren, she can't be happy for too long. She has to go back to her obsession. I know, right? Not, you know, her single-minded obsession that she's always thinking about. She's thinking back to what Abe said, or that they were apostles, her parents, and the fact that he said no, and he lied. This was about, I'm trying to remember, this was about that he didn't know the kids, right? So he said he did know the kids. And her, you know, looking at all those papers scattered in the attic, and she's like, okay. She kind of has that expression like, okay, let me stop thinking about it. She closes her eyes. I think she does have a little bit of self-awareness, enough to know like, okay, maybe now's not the time, and let me sometimes block out, you know, my repetitive obsessive thoughts and like focus on the present. I hope at least she's self-aware enough to try to do that. Do you think she is?
I get her reasoning for why she thinks that the kid in the car was Dylan, because if any parent let their kid near Abel Sandman, I would call CPS on them. I don't trust that dude at all.
Now, but back then, apparently. they did trust him.
Well, yeah, he probably did recognize him and, didn't think anything of it.
I always assumed, well, actually, that's my question. We're gonna get to when we discuss them, like the conversation later. But okay, you know what? We'll get to it later when we discuss
Yeah,
that.
it's
So,
a big
We're
thing
getting so
later.
off track.
yeah. So now they're leaving the bar, and the cutest thing ever, because Lila and Lucas are leaving together.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
My
A
ship.
win for the Lula shippers.
It's awesome.
Meanwhile, the submarine.
Submarine? What's the submarine?
The
I-
Lucky.
It's a submarine because we're mostly underwater.
The ship
Okay.
has sunk so far.
Got it.
We have to improvise so we can survive.
Okay. So actually, here's my question. S and E bar, like I feel like it was highlighted in 2 panels. Besides for like, okay, it's showing the bar's closing and it's very late. Do you think it means anything? Are we
I think
supposed to like
it's Soap
remember
and
The
this?
name of the artist. Or
Yeah, I
the,
think it's supposed to be Soap and F.
yeah, Soap and F.
Okay,
That's
that's
what
it?
we guessed.
Okay, I'm wondering if it'll like come up later as part of the plot or something. Anyway,
Um,
Cameo.
Actually, the reason why I think I assume that it's Soap and F because she's done that before when she doesn't want to spoil things. She'll just like write down S and E in random spots so people can't guess names and stuff. There's
okay.
always such weird things on stream that I catch that Soap does.
And then
Correct me if I'm wrong, the next panel is Will and the blonde police officer tossing Kim around.
yes, they're carrying Kim into the
Oh.
car.
Oh no, Kim.
Oh, poor Grace.
Even though Will did the drinking contest, he's still like dealing with Kim. And I'm surprised that Will has a drinking tolerance.
Same with Kieran. Kieran, what are you hiding?
I'm not so surprised about him, but yeah, he seemed sober.
Oh, and then Kieran and Lauren are standing together, which again is like a sign of their friendship, that they're coupling off, they're standing together and observing the crowd like a real couple, at least I felt, or at least friends.
I can't honestly stop thinking about Lauren's parents when I see that panel of Lauren and Kieran by the lamppost.
They look like Alex and Rachel.
They do.
It's tragic. It is one of my favorite panels. So I think it's just like the distance we have and the perspective and then the lantern, like just in general, they look so casual. It's really nice to see.
Comfortable together. Yeah, and the words that they're saying are also beautiful, because she's like, oh, what a night, and he's like, yeah, your precinct is a great bunch.
Yeah.
That is so sweet. Like, he appreciates them, and he kind of, I think he wishes he could, have that life and not have to do what he's doing and just be a normal person and be a part of that fun.
Mhm. He
I
says
call it
your precinct
people.
though, like despite the fact that they both work there at that building now, he still doesn't consider himself part of it even after that, which is eventually he'll crack.
Maybe this will help him understand why Lauren was so ignorant in 68, because he sees this precinct and like how joyful these people are, and they're nothing like those other guys in precinct 6. Like, so
That was also my first thought when I read that. I was like, I didn't think Kieran's accusations were justified, because at least in the story, we didn't have enough information to say that that's what the police does all the time. Like from Lauren's perspective, like you said, besides the fact that her precinct is nice, we didn't have any indication that the police doesn't do good things. So I do feel like it probably is more complex than what Kieran portrayed, which would also make sense, because if he's coming from a background where they hated the police, then he would have one skewed perspective, which it doesn't necessarily reflect all of the police department.
Yeah. Again, it's very subtle foreshadowing when it comes to this sort of issue. And episodes 65 and 68 have been our biggest episodes, like discuss this issue. But it is still, I'd say, pretty relevant. Like maybe not the police so much as the actual, like how the lower class is treated. In 68, we actually see the flashback. We see a flashback to episode 45, and we see how a woman is stealing jewels, and we see how the they pull a gun on her, and it doesn't matter. She says it's for her mom, but we really don't know what her motive is, and likely it was because she couldn't support herself, as like we see later on. We see Kieran going to Grey Chapel, and there are children on these streets, and these children are not getting a lot of help, which is obvious, as they're not in an orphanage, and they're quite literally begging random people. And something that I think is a really big thing, a really big indicator of the social, I guess, the social situation of Ardhalis is Allendale and the PS, because the PS and Allendale and SD, Snapdragon, they're all central to this. And we don't, like you said, we don't see a lot of the mess that is the class war in Ardhalis. And that's why in 54, when Lauren finds the Snapdragon panels or pamphlets, it's such a surprise to her, because she had never had any exposure to this. And because we the audience are viewing this story mainly from her perspective, we've hardly had any exposure to the issue as well. And so, but now Lauren is learning about it, and now we are learning about it, and now we can go back and we can realize every single tiny detail that the authors put that just completely flew over our heads. My favorite, I wrote a bit on this a while back, and it kind of predicted episode 68.
That's why I don't theorize. I don't like to predict what's going to happen.
It was mainly an observation, so let me see if I can find it.
It's a good point though that you brought up. I didn't even think about, like, when I first started Purple Hyacinth and reading it, I didn't even think about Lauren pulling a gun on that lady as the wrong thing to do. For some reason, it just like, and that's wrong, because she wasn't Phantom Safe. I mean, even if she was, there's no indication that we knew.
Yeah,
and it was like they brought up a lot of good points. Like, she was very aggressive, and it's just, I wonder if that's gonna change things for Lauren. If she actually is ever on patrol again.
People who do steal, a lot of times they're stealing or committing a crime because it's the only way for them to achieve what they need. And what seems to be the case in Ardhalis is a lot of people are turning to crime because they're unable to support themselves and their families financially, which is why the Phantom Scythe has been so successful, because it is preying on the needs of a lower class, which has been neglected by the ruling class for so long.
Oh my god, I just got a big brain theory.
Oh dear.
It has to do with Dakin.
Oh god.
And him being the apostle, the seventh apostle. What if, okay, so like Dakin fears that. He fears that the people are going to start joining the Phantom Scythe, and even though he may be in the Phantom Scythe, that's not what he wants. He wants the complete opposite. So it's like trying to heal the society and the city is going to help his side of things if he is part of the coup.
Okay. Could be.
There was a huge theory. Someone dropped a big theory about Dakin being the apostle. Like, for a long time, we've said that he's an apostle and that he could potentially be the seventh one and part of the coup, and, you know, trying to stop the leader himself and whatnot. So it's very interesting.
The thing I want to bring up around Allendale and why it was targeted by the PS is because it was actually a pet project of the king, the late king, King Edward. He financed Allendale with what we assume to be taxpayer money. And in episode 66, we actually find out from one of the Snapdragon pamphlets that taxes, around the time that Allendale was being constructed, taxes on the poor had been significantly raised. And obviously the poor, like the lower class, they don't have the money to pay those taxes. And Allendale is cheap labor. The lower class is considered cheap labor by the upper class. And I'm just going to read what I wrote back in October. So the first part of it is just trying to figure out like how wealth is distributed across the city. Eventually we learned that the South Shore, so like the precincts that are south of everything else, those are the poorest districts. And so I said the Allendale train station was a pet project of the king, something located in the first precinct. Using conclusions from above, it would make sense to say that the area is relatively wealthy as it borders precincts 13, 12, and a bit of 11, which are all northern precincts. And because precinct 1, which is where Allendale was, is such a wealthy area, that ATS may have been another example of how the monarchy kept placing funds into precincts that didn't need it, rather than precincts washed in poverty. Like someone else said, they could have built an orphanage or created more jobs in the poor precincts, but here we see they instead built a fancy train station. Well, yes, it can be argued that the train station created some labor jobs for people in the surrounding precincts, such as 3 and 2, which were theorized to be poor. One train station can't raise those areas out of poverty, and what's worse, if those aren't the poor precincts and it's actually the precincts that are westward, none of those people will be able to commute to the train station as the distance is just way too far. And after all this, it's likely that the people in the poor districts won't be able to use the beautiful station that was built off their hard work and manual labor. Instead, the wealthy get to use it, and it's just another luxury in their life that they won't pay much attention to once the hype slows down. But the funds that were used to build the train station could have been crucial to areas that the poor people lived in. Like, just imagine that you worked really hard to build this beautiful station and you can't even use it if you don't stay subservient to the wealthy. If you don't stay subservient to the wealthy, you and your family might starve. Every day you see your fellow workers join you in paving paths, installing columns, and you can't help but feel a rush of jealousy that your kids can't go to school 5 days a week because the teachers aren't paid enough, or maybe the school building is falling apart and it's not safe to work in. The mere existence of the train station is a slight to everyone in the lower class. It is a symbol of everything they have been cheated out of by the wealthy. And of course, that's why the Phantom Scythe would target it. And the man, Edward, who had been ignoring them for so long, they were just tired of being overlooked. Sorry, that was also very off topic.
I mean, I could definitely see that. My first thought was actually trains, because like they're they go to presumably a lot of places, was actually that, yeah, trains could be a good thing. But yeah, I mean, your theory is totally plausible.
I actually think it was a really good point, because a lot of these workers, you can't find work everywhere in the city. All these people do need jobs. So using this train as a means to go places and work and provide for your family is taken away, because they don't want to build on the South Shore and it's too far for you, and you are too poor for a car and like any other means. So it's just like you're cut from everything, and there's only so much you can do until it snaps, and that's the Phantom Scythe. I really like that the train station is the target, like that's the purpose of the target, because I never really thought about it as to why the train station. I just figured it was just the perfect moment to kill the king, basically. Him being in public, it all planned out and whatnot.
That would be interesting to see if that was something deliberate. Cool. I like the speculation. Very cool. So getting back to the episode again.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's very, very cool. Just, go back and forth between that. So Kieran gives her this really, really cute smile. He's like, Kim, it's just as crazy as the first day I saw you. And we have a little bit of a flashback to her banging on the glass, which to me is, so one of the topics I researched in school was marriage and divorce and all that. And apparently one of the best signs that you're in a happy marriage is if you ask a couple to tell you how they met, and they like get excited and they tell you about it, and they're like, oh yeah, we met like this, and they go on for like half an hour about their story of how they met, even 30 years later, because that means they still love each other. So he remembers how they met. It's distinct to him. It's like the first day I met you.
Aww, foot in the face. That's so sweet. Aww. I really love this. Actually, a long time ago on Purple Garden, she mentioned that, or someone had asked that, will Kieran bring up the whole Kim slamming her face into the glass? So I'm so happy to finally see this brought up. And it's another favorite panel of mine, of Kieran taking off those glasses, and suddenly he's the Kieran we know. You know what I mean? It's like he's so good at that.
Mm-hmm. He looks quite handsome without those glasses. Just saying.
I do want to say though, like, so after the whole foot in the face thing, I did go back and reread just to count how many foot in the face panels we get, and there's, I think, 2 of each. I think they both get 2 kicks in the face. So that's they're doing great.
Yeah. And it's really cute. And then he's looking down at her and they're looking up and she's looking up at him and it's adorable.
Oh
and he's
my
saying,
God, I love the panels so
I
much.
know, right? And he says, and he's pointing out something that he thinks is cute about her. He says, I think meeting you lying on the floor catching cups would have been better. He noticed and he thought it was adorable.
But he acted like he didn't care. He acts like a middle school boy with a crush. Like, oh, I don't care during the bar, but oh yeah, now, yeah, that's cute.
It's peak right person, wrong time.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest thing.
But
like-
Kieran's taste would be a girl on the ground catching cups. He would find that quirky girl in the bar, and that's Lauren.
Or a guy.
Oh, or a guy. I really do hope we get some kind of backstory with Kieran, that maybe he did have an ex, so that we get the whole, hey, Kieran is bi thing, because it is canon.
I don't
Yeah.
want Kieran to have an ex because I am very jealous for Lauren.
Oh no.
Heart should be completely Lauren's.
If Kieran does have an ex, I hope it's not Bella.
Oh no.
Totally Bella, by
Please
the way.
no.
Sorry.
Because I don't
Notwithstanding what I just said. They
I
totally
don't-
had something going on there.
I don't think they
but I don't want
dated.
Bella to be reduced to as like the jealous ex by the fandom.
I don't think
That's
they
what I worry
dated.
about.
Okay, you know what? I get that, but I did get that vibe from her a little bit.
True.
I got not the jealous necessarily, a little bit jealous, but more like resentful and a
Possessive.
little bit upset that he wasn't with her. And why Kieran clearly doesn't like her anymore because he sees her as immoral because she likes killing. And I think I got the sense that she was upset that he doesn't like her anymore.
And
They kind of wounded her.
She's also very possessive over Lauren, and she hasn't even had a conversation with the girl.
Possessive over like she's mine to kill kind of
She-
way.
I don't know, because the way that she was saying it to him, what episode was it? 73, was it? She said, when something catches her eye, it's something important to her. So
I
Lauren's gonna
thought that was
catch
a
her
veiled
eye.
reference to Kieran, that Kieran had caught her eye and he was still on her mind.
See, I think Bella's gonna keep Lauren alive because she's gonna strike some interest. And
There's
it's gonna
something, 'cause
cause this
She didn't
interesting
kill her
dynamic.
when she knocked her unconscious with Tim's stake. I thought she was like, there was no reason for her not to kill him. And she was like, oh, too many witnesses.
It was like a
Didn't
lame
stop you at the
excuse.
circus, lady.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's kind of ironic and funny at the same time. Because sake, she's just like, yeah, I'll kill you in public.
Jake doesn't deserve the respect of a private death.
Yeah,
Poor
so
Tammy.
I know, I'm curious. I will find out. I do think there was something between them. I mean, obviously, besides for however they knew each other, but in the past, I do think there was something romantic. So anyway, Lauren tells him, she's like, oh yes, best version of myself. You're a lucky man to have seen that, subordinate.
Subordinate.
It's like the first time she's
Finally.
called him that since like episode 38, and for us that's been like a year. It's been a year since
And
we last
38 was
heard him say
like-
that.
Oh yeah, wasn't it Where Have You Been, Subordinate?
Yeah.
I think that was the last time.
Wow.
That's
It's
so
been
long.
so long.
They're teasing, they're joking. It's so cute. And they're walking off together. And their
Yay. She
footprints
didn't
in the
even
snow.
say, he didn't even like, I guess they just go the same way. So he's just walking with her. But I'm glad that he followed. He didn't just like let her walk off.
But they don't live near each other, right? Because like she mentions like, oh, I'm not going to walk across town, blah, blah, blah. He didn't want to carry her across town. But so they don't live near each other, but they're still walking together.
Yeah.
So
They live
like-
on opposite sides of the precinct.
Yeah, so she would actually, now I'm kind of confused because they go to the bridge. So obviously they're heading to Kieran's place, but what is Lauren doing?
have we determined is the bridge on the way to Kieran? It's like
Kieran's
Um,
place is very close to the bridge.
We would assume that they were in a bar in the 11th precinct. So
Yes.
crossing a bridge doesn't make sense as there's no bridge in the 11th precinct except if you're trying to leave it. But any of the precincts
no
that they
bridge in
would
the 11th precinct.
That's why I'm confused. It seems like Lauren is going away from her house. Because
Yeah.
Kieran would be walking past the bridge to go to his place.
There's only
Okay,
one
okay.
bridge.
Right?
But walking in PH doesn't make sense because Kim took like in 63, like Kim took Will on an entire tour, like they outlined the precinct before she took him to his house. And what we guess and what we've been theorizing is that the richer properties are up north. They're like, and so Kim would have taken him like everywhere but his house. And so walking in PH just doesn't make sense, just like December.
Wait, so because Kieran's place is on the other side of the bridge, not the South Shore.
Yeah, Kieran is
Very confused.
right
So
next
they
to
How
had
did
no
you-
reason to be on that bridge.
It's
How did
hard
you
to-
arrive at the conclusion that there's only one bridge?
Well, there's two.
There's several bridges.
Oh no, there's more than two.
There's
I
a
think
map somewhere. Let me find the map.
There's more
There's
than
a map.
two. There's two that connect the north and south, and then I think there's one on the west side.
Where
Or
was
there
this
might
map?
be two.
Was it in like the season 1 recap thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
There's
if
two
you-
though. There's two bridges.
Let me
At
send
least.
it to you.
Guys, maybe this is like the whole date thing. Maybe this is not supposed to make sense.
I
Meaning
know.
Yeah.
like the timeline.
Yeah, it's not. We could spend hours going over it and we would get
Because-
nowhere.
We know the one name of the bridge. The one bridge's name, I forget. Lawrence? St. Lawrence? Okay, so yeah, there are three. So he lives, didn't we guess, or didn't F say
We got it right. He
that it
lives.
was on the northeast
He
part,
lives.
right up by the bridge?
He lives on the southwest part of the 11th precinct, like right that little corner right next to the bridge. And we got F to confirm it, and it was one of the peaks of the
So
fan theory
close to
community.
Golden Clover.
Yeah,
Okay. Of the 11th precinct?
Yeah, kind of close, a little bit farther down. Yeah, in the 11th precinct.
So I'm trying to look if there's another bridge. All right, let's just assume it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Or they, I know my friend and I, when we were in school, we used to be like, oh, I'll walk you home. And then we'd walk 10 blocks to her house. And then she'd be like, I'll walk you home. And then she'd walk
Yeah.
back to my house. I'll walk you home. And we just walk back and forth. So maybe they're doing that because they want to be with each other.
Yeah, because Kieran's smiling. I wonder if he's smiling the whole way. Because like
Aw.
we see him just smiling here, and Lauren's about to run the mood.
Yeah, he's having a good time. You know, romantic stroll on the bridge. What could be better?
In the freezing cold.
I think they should, huddle close for warmth. Just saying.
At least
Hold
they
his
have
hand.
snow.
Yeah, but Lauren is thinking, and she's thinking a betrayal, painful, unexpected, but inevitable ending, thinking about what the fortune teller told her. Someone around you has or will stab you in the back, which I like that kind of like the openness, because what is it, the has part? I'm kind of inclined to think it's has,
I'm thinking both.
Yeah, it makes sense if it's both, because like, especially if it's like someone who we didn't know was in the PS actually being in the PS, because that means like they betrayed her at first and they're betraying her now by still being there. Like they betrayed her by being in there, and that they're betraying her by still being in it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But she clenches her fist and she doesn't want to think that. She's like, no. And she thinks back to Kieran in the closet saying, I just want you to know that I will not cause you more harm than I already did. I sincerely mean it. And she's thinking of him protecting her after the circus. Get away from here. I'll deal with Bella. And she's like, no, not him. And that's like just amazing that she's come to this level where like she trusts him enough. And it's something that's emotionally meaningful for her, where she doesn't want to not trust him. She wants to trust him. It's, like this is something that's gotten into her heart now.
It's so profound, and it's a great progress for Lauren. And because that's saying a lot, I'm not very happy with Lauren these past few episodes. the whole thing with Sandman in general, I mean, if we're going by how many days have passed, she's had a lot of time to tell him a lot of things. And now we're down to the wire. We're like 2 days before the whole Sandman meeting. I'm pretty sure it's like right after New Year's. So it's now or never, Lauren.
100%. I mean, that's my totally biggest issue with Lauren is like, you have to talk more, like you're just missing out on so much. For a detective, like you don't know how to work collaboratively. Anyway, but she now, like for once, she is going to tell him, and she's like, and he deserves to know, which again, it's like, you're thinking about it in terms of like, he deserves to know rather than like, oh, I should tell him because of my own personal reasons or, you know, selfish desires to get more information. So again, that's like a sign of like her treating him as a person and really taking him into consideration and his feelings and his heart and his needs.
I love this. So like, you know, she had a mental list before the bar, and you know, for me, I'm so happy to see that Kieran is the first one crossed off on that mental list, because unfortunately Kim is still on that list. Like, even though she stopped after thinking of Kim, we still don't know, unfortunately.
I suspect Dana was the spy, not of the Liddell family, not Kim.
Yeah, I feel that's what my whole theory was too, that Dana was the spy. But I think there's just some things about Kim that, you know, there's so much about her that we just don't know.
Yeah, she's definitely still hiding some stuff. All of them are. Maybe not Will, though. Not sure about Will. His family is hiding stuff, but maybe not him specifically.
Yeah, he does not give off any suspicious vibes at all. Anywho, Lauren decides to talk, and she's like, hey, there are a few things I need to tell you. And she, you know, she hesitates. She, you know, clenches her fist, and looking away, she says a lot, actually. And she's looking over at the bridge. And again, she's like stammering the whole time. She's like, I suppose I'll start with the beginning. And Kieran's giving her this very intense look. I feel like he's like, oh, what is she going to say now? What am I going to hear? But his eyes are furrowed, and he's definitely, I think, very attentive.
He's long waited for this, you know, and to go back, it surprised me that Lauren didn't automatically think about Kieran as the betrayal when she was at the carnival. Because, like, in my opinion, like, if I had some fortune teller tell me that, and then I am waiting for Kieran to come back and he's right there, and then I see him, my brain would assume right away, like, is he the one that's going to betray me? But like, Lauren's brain is so slow that it took her like 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, maybe. I don't know.
He is the first person to betray her, though, so it is reasonable
Yes.
that she would jump back to him again when she's told there's going to be another betrayal. Because although I don't really consider him not telling her that he was going to go kill the convicts, I don't think that was a betrayal. That was just,
I don't see it as a betrayal.
Because
honestly, there's more of a
know.
betrayal from Lauren right now than Kieran. Her not telling him that Sandman knows who he is such a detrimental thing.
I thought a lot of people know he's 𝗪𝗪 though.
Yeah, but like, not someone who would risk him. Like, they wouldn't go to the police. They're Phantom Scythe members. They wouldn't risk exposing him. So Sandman, he's threatening, he's blackmailing Lauren, and Kieran deserves to know that.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. Well, she does go on. She's like, I didn't tell you the truth that day. And there's a lot of whooshes, which I guess is the water. And she says, when we caught Ensue at the Golden Clover, yeah, and he knows what she's talking about because he's not dumb. He's like, yeah, we found a picture, and you told me it was related to your demotion. And she says, yes, I've always wondered. And he, you know, tells her the truth. I wondered what on earth you saw in it. And then she tells him, I reacted so violently because I saw steak in the photograph. And the picture was taken on the day of the explosion near the entrance of the Allendale train station. But the real reason I lost it, and, you know, there's a lot of like pain on her face when she says that, is because steak was in my parents' car with my parents' driver. And she's looking at him when she says that. So, and she's like expressing the full range of her emotion when she says that, which again, to me is like, she's trusting him with that, with something intimate and vulnerable and raw about her.
And
the connection with the whole Allendale station. I love that Kieran is connecting the pieces himself. You know, Kieran found out more information than Lauren did in 10 years.
well, to be fair, he's had more access to Phantom
Yeah.
Scythe information than she has.
But he's also just got a more of a balanced, logical head on him. Lauren's kind of been just spinning. She's like a little, like he said in the beginning, she has been spinning in circles, and she still is.
Oh, yeah.
My big frustration all along was like, Lauren, if you want to get to the bottom of this, like you have the perfect source of information next to you, like ask him questions.
Yeah.
I was like, why not talk to him?
Is he
Her
will
pride.
answer those questions?
Mhm.
Because like they started off this whole loon thing because each person had information that the other needed. So Kieran needed access to like he needed someone preferably in the police who could help him like in investigations if they had any files on the people. But then Lauren is also helpful because she can give him information when someone is lying, which is something he doesn't have the ability of knowing. However, and then on Lauren's side, she needs Kieran because he has information on the Phantom side that she needs but doesn't have access to. And so both were just profiting off the other for their own gain. And ultimately, that's why their relationship didn't work in season 1, because it wasn't meant to. It was just superficial and just like another business transaction.
Right. But now that the deal is off, everything is just kind of out in the open.
Yep. They don't have to oblige by those rules anymore of like no personal questions or telling the other person everything, because they don't have that rule anymore. And so Kieran doesn't have to tell Lauren anything. Lauren doesn't have to tell him anything. But now they actually get space to be personal with the other and share personal information. Now that they don't have it a rule.
But even before, when they had that rule, like they weren't keeping it. They weren't telling each other everything, please. Like,
yeah.
So now here's the interesting part. She tells him, you know, with my parents' driver, Abel Sandman, and then boom, his eyes go wide. What do you think about that? Why do you think so? Why do you
My
think he reacts
theory
like
is
that?
huge, and oh my goodness, we'll be here all night.
Shivii, you have to tell me. I'm sorry. Maybe later, but you're gonna have to tell me at some point.
Yeah, it's really interesting that he reacted that way, because he also says below that, I see your driver was already one of them, as if he had just confirmed with himself knowledge that he just found out that is important to him. And it makes me worry, because is Kieran going to do something to Sandman now? Because now that he has this information and this name, because, you know, as we get further down, obviously Kieran knew something about the children in the car, and he may have known some of the other people in the car. And now that he knows who Sandman is and that he was also responsible for whatever happened to those children, he might feel the need to get some type of justice.
My thing with that is that didn't Kieran say he only kills when he's ordered to and when he absolutely has to? I feel like a revenge killing would be out of place for him.
I feel like he wouldn't do it because Lauren needs questions, but I feel like he would beat the shit out of Sandman. I feel like we would all be happy with that. But
I would live vicariously through Kieran when he does that.
I really seriously just need him slamming him into a wall, like a brick wall, just bloody his face, just beat him to a pulp, and then threaten him and say never touch Lauren again. If she told him that she was kidnapped, which I feel like she won't say anything.
I'll find out though. I wonder.
Yeah, a lot of people think that Kieran knew Dylan in the Phantom Scythe, and that Dylan was one of the kids in the car. And in one of the episodes, was it 73? One of those episodes around there, Bella mentions that Kieran's been protective over someone. We don't know who, but it was someone. And she's never seen him this protective over another person before. And that might have been Dylan. And so if Sandman was involved, right, and Kieran recognizes Sandman, and Sandman was part of and Sandman was the reason Dylan was in there. Dylan gets killed because he's in the Phantom Scythe. Kieran wants to avenge Dylan's death, which is also why he's trying to find a leader so he can avenge Dylan, because we don't completely know Kieran's motives for wanting to take down the leader, of course, for the common good, but he also says it's still a mystery to us, which he says in episode 10. So yeah,
if that's the case, by the way, then that would really put Lauren and Kieran in very much in parallel, because that would give them both the same exact motivation for wanting to take down the leader. But I want to go through these panels before we discuss that whole thing, because I definitely have a lot to say about that.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here, but it's all the same discussion. So let's continue.
So she says, seeing him with Stake, I knew that meant he had to be involved in the Phantom Scythe. And, she confirmed it when she ran into Stake. Stake was involved in the Al-Dam bombing, and Sandman was their getaway driver. And he's like, yeah, I see your driver was already one of them. And he's not looking at her while he's saying this. And she says that she heard at the Carmine Camellia, she heard Stake mention another man. Robin Delaney was in the car with him too. And she's like, I still don't know why. Delaney's dead, and I couldn't find anything on him in the police records. Kieran says, I've never heard of him either, which to me, I'm wondering maybe Robin Delaney had another name. And
I have a theory on this. I'm not sure if you want to hear it right now, but I'll let you continue first.
Does it tie into other stuff that we'll talk about later?
Kind of, yes.
Okay, so let's do it all together at the end.
Yeah.
And and she stops, and then she says, Kieran turns around, and she's like, there's another thing that they told me when I saw him, and she's bedumping. She's really, really nervous because this is important to her. She says, the day of the tragedy, there's a lot of bedumps. He said, badump, that they took children with them on their way out. And she turns around and looks at him. Have you ever heard about this? You know what happened to them? And this is, again, super pivotal for her, very important for her, or if there were others. I wonder, do you think she suspects that Kieran was in the car when she asked this part, if there were others? Or do you think that's not on her mind at all?
I think she's more asking for the
I think she's thinking about Dylan, honestly.
Yeah, because she knows that Kieran doesn't know Stake, and so she would probably assume that if Kieran was in the car, he would know Stake.
And then Kieran is not looking at her. He's overlooking at the bridge, and she's bedumping. She's just, this is a very emotionally fraught question for her. And he says, yeah, oh yes, they kidnap kids. At this point she turns around, whips, and the tale is known within the Phantom Scythe. They're dead. And they're overlooking this reflection, and you see that only Lauren's reflection is on the bridge, and he's not there. And you see him walking away. So you're like, okay, either theoretically the reflection should, his reflection should be there. Some people say, oh, it's because he's walking away, but I'll give my suspicions on that in a second. But basically he walks away. Lauren's expression is, she's totally aghast. She is in high emotional distress, and that's where the episode ends. So let's start talking.
Okay, so I think he saw us talking about this earlier, the reflection thing. I guess I'll move backwards. So I was thinking, because I'm dumb, I didn't scroll down, and I forgot that Kieran leaves in that moment. So I thought that it's either they forgot to put Kieran's reflection, or it's supposed to be symbolism that Kieran maybe was one of the kids in the car and just was blindfolded, didn't see Stake. And dead people and ghosts don't really have reflections, and monsters like vampires don't have their reflections in silver. So I was thinking, is that supposed to be symbolism that either Kieran is supposedly dead, and or is he a monster, like we see him say in 43? But the thing is, we've seen Kieran have his reflection twice before. Both times it's from the aftermath of 43. We see it in the coffee cup in 81, and then the pool waters of the cave in 45. Yeah. And he has the glow around his eyes, and sort of the symbolism of him being a monster. But the fact that there's no reflection there, when the past two reflections that we've seen have been monster Kieran. It's a bit, oh,
My theory is pretty basic. It's basically, I think he was, whoever these kids were in the car were taken somewhere, and wherever that was where Kieran was. So Kieran as well, like, was one of the children that suffered because of the phantom sights, but I mean, he has a good life now because of it. But so the tale, obviously he's talking about the tale that they're dead, but it's not the truth. But
Okay.
it's like dead. It's kind of like how he had to shed his innocence and who he was to become who he is now. So yeah, technically they are dead, or they really are dead. It could be any.
Right. The theory I went along with was that, especially because if he is one of the kids in the car, which I don't even know, and he's not dead, obviously, right? So either like he's talking about, oh, people think they're dead, or I got the impression that, their old identity is gone, like the people who they were is gone. That's dead. Now they're new people. They've been totally reinvented by the phantom scythe. They have to be, a new person that they'll want to be, a monster, a terrible person. So that's the way I read it. But my big thing is I don't know why Lauren is jumping to the conclusion that Dylan was in the car. And I don't even know why any of us are jumping into the conclusion that Kieran was in the car either. Like, there are so many ways he could have gotten into the phantom scythe, especially given the whole situation with the run and the chair and the torture, the person being tortured that looks like a sibling or a family member. And I'm like, maybe, that would be convenient from a story perspective that they were both in the car. But I'm like, I don't know, it could have been anyone in the car. Like,
The whole Kieran thing in the car was relatively early, but was confirmed wrong when he said he didn't know who 𝗏 was, which was like, okay. And plus, like, it just didn't seem to fit the timeline with like all the flashbacks with Kieran. It seemed like he was already in some shit that wasn't good. But where Dylan is, we just find his hat. So my theory, before the whole, more information that we've gotten about Sandman talking about Dylan, we assume Dylan, is that
that's the thing, right? We don't know. He just said he knew the kid in the car. Basically, he lied and he, so that we know he knew the kid.
Either kids. Dylan, yeah, like either. So my theory was before is either Dylan saw something that he shouldn't have seen, and because of that, they had to take him. Or, Sandman saw him, felt bad for the kid. The kid he wasn't rich, he was just a normal kid. So maybe Sandman just took him because he didn't want him to die in some explosion.
or
That'd be
maybe,
nice.
maybe
Or
Paul was the leader, Mr. Rosenthal's
yeah,
the leader, and he didn't want his kid to die.
Mr. Rosenthal's the leader, and he didn't want his kid to die. So maybe he was, because he see, this theory is, I really like this theory because it works. When you read back, it's kind of unsettling.
Snapdragon is a flower.
It is so unsettling rereading 40. I think it's 49, the finale. It's because he leads them away, and then he makes up some excuse like, oh, I have to go like see my supervisor, some blah blah blah. Like, okay, and then you leave, and that's suspicious.
He would be faking his death.
Yeah.
At the point.
Wait, do you know? I was just rereading when she runs back. After like Lil leaves her with her twisted ankle, she runs back to the train station. She runs in and she runs over some bodies, and she's like, "Mr. Rosenthal." I was wondering, was she seeing Mr. Rosenthal among the dead bodies? That she said that,
or just asking for him?
Yeah, I think she was searching for him.
Yeah.
No body. They're not confirmed dead.
Not dead.
Also,
no body. Probably the leader.
I think the reason that the Kieran was a kid in the car theory was so big was because it stemmed from the Dylan equals Kieran theory. So last year, dark time for all of us. A lot of us thought that Kieran was Dylan. And so when after 49 dropped, we were like, oh, or after 48, after those two episodes came out, a lot of people were like, oh, Dylan had to be in the car. But what if Dylan is Kieran? That means Kieran was also in the car. So Dylan and Kieran, same person, they're in the car. But then people were like, but what if they're not the same person? Were they in the car together?
Yeah, and the whole like children, there was multiple. So like we were, who else, We thought like Bella maybe, or at one point I guessed Raphael.
I think it would have been a little bit older then, but I don't think it would have been.
But he was a bit older, so but to Sandman, Raphael is still a kid to him. So in terms of Sandman talking, if Raphael was in the car and he was, 19 or 20, to Sandman, he's still a kid. So still up in the air for me.
He looks older. He doesn't look 30. He looks, I have to look back.
Raphael, I know, is like, we can assume he was like, what, maybe 17 in that flashback with Will?
Maybe 18, 19, late teens, early 20s.
Probably legal of age and ready to leave and run away.
Yeah, I'm still gonna go with it. Could I don't know if this would be the further story, but for the purposes of intellectual reason, I'm gonna say it could theoretically be any kid in the car, like random kids I've never heard of.
Yeah.
From a storytelling perspective, because there's been so much weight placed around it, the kids are obviously important, and so the cast is already so big. There's got to be some.
I think it's going to connect to some other characters. Maybe it was someone else's child, or
definitely.
Maybe there were just children in the area and they didn't want those kids to die, or maybe they were like, these kids will be useful, let's take them, because they're nobody's now anyways. They're just going to go into the adoption center.
Or end up on the street in Great Chapel.
Or end up on the street and end up in the Phantom Scythe anyways. So they're just quickening the process.
Yep.
I guess thinking. Yeah, another reason I'm thinking that maybe it isn't kids that we know in the car is A, because I think it would be a really cool twist, and also B, because the whole theme of Lauren being blind, and I wonder, and Lauren has this tendency to just jump and I think not maybe think too hard. So I feel like that would be a good, in terms of highlighting a character deficiency on her part, that Lauren's making all these assumptions about it must have been Dylan in the car. And then it would be really cool if it was oh, Lauren, you're just jumping into things again. It wasn't even Dylan, or it wasn't even anyone that you knew. And that would be relating to the whole she's blind thing. But that's just my personal bent.
Dylan being dead, if Dylan is actually dead, which he likely is, I would just have clowned myself so hard, because a while back I was just completely convinced that the photographer, which we now know is Abel, I was just completely convinced that the photographer was Dylan. And when I found out it was Abel, I cried. Partly because it was spoiled to me. Partly because it was spoiled to me and a month before. But I cried when I found out.
It was so convincing though. Soph drew the photographer like Dylan on purpose, because there's some panels where he looks really young, and it makes me think my tinfoil brain is thinking that perhaps there are two photographers. What if there is, and the next we see another panel of a ka-cha and it's actually Dylan. We flip out.
That would definitely be setting us up and trolling us.
I do have a big brain theory about Dylan, but it's best reserved as a whole for episode 66, or not episode 66, episode 78, because that's where a lot of the information I got is from. But
for episode 78,
so basically I'll just try to summarize. When Lauren goes home, I mentioned 66 is because if when you're scrolling through the episode the first time, you're pretty quick about it probably, but there are a lot of things that
slow, the opposite.
Soph will purposely blur out words and stuff on papers and stuff like that and give us new names and hints. 66 has a lot of this. We have a reporter's name, a journalist, other things.
This ties back to my Delaney theory.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that. Hold on. And then, so the same thing in 78, there's a lot of papers that are blurred out, but also some things are there that we can see. So when she's asking about what did they do with Dylan? What happened to him? These papers are all in her attic and are about the military. So there's a telegraph from a commander. There's something about troops and a disarmament agency. The telegraph is for distribution of weapons and artillery. And the commander like talks about like their total strength and all their ranks and stuff, and like a new program, some other things, and something outside of the city. There's some other things as well, like research. I think Soph just kind of like copy pasted some things from research papers, but I wonder if they're important in terms of Dylan's fate, because a part of me thinks that Dylan was a soldier. He ended up being a soldier. These children, if they don't make the cut like Kieran did and become assassins or killers for the Phantom Scythe, they're carted off somewhere so they aren't found or questioned about, and they're used for the purpose of war. And this is where like the whole Stefan thing comes in, because he was the general of the army. So it makes me wonder if Stefan has connections with the Phantom Scythe. Is there some kind of corrupt deal happening between, where they agree to give the Phantom Scythe agrees to give children to the war, whatever, anything like that. It just seems very odd that they would add this stuff and purposely not blur it all out if it's important.
I wonder now if Stefan or Stefan is related to the weapons import. If he's a Phantom Scythe member, right, then he would have that area of expertise. So it would make sense to have him do that.
I wonder if they did supply weapons, or if there's some kind of deal going on, some trading happening, because obviously the Phantom Scythe has a lot of power and money. So it doesn't matter, even though they're a problem to the city, deals can still be made between enemies if it helps them.
And
makes sense.
Raphael is the messenger who's overlooking the Apostle 7 operations. I think Raphael, we're pretty set on Raphael. It's most likely Raphael is that messenger, and Raphael's the messenger dealing with like the bomb imports and sake and all of that. So that's another little thread right there.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this whole Dylan soldier thing is so chaotic, but you know how Dylan said he wanted to be a doctor? What if he was a doctor in the war? And what if he died from a bullet? What if he
was
died
there a war?
because of... Well, that's the thing. We don't know, but I would assume that there was, or they're still fighting, but it's just not like, it's not detrimental to the city.
I mean, we found out in the last episode that Kieran actually was overseas for a few years, and that's why he had that hiatus that we found out about like in the first few episodes. And so Kieran might have been out doing that.
And he also calls his daily training a training regimen, meaning that's a military training type of regimen that he has. So I think Kieran did have military training in order to be successful as
and now. He has a chunk of skin missing, or he has a chunk of flesh missing on his shoulder.
Yeah.
Maybe what if like the Circus Royale, they had tattoos there, like the military members had tattoos there, and eventually when he left he just, I guess, dug it out.
It could be, and that's why he's not afraid of guns either, and why he's
part of the Circus Royale too.
It just seems to answer a lot of questions, because if you think about like the whole gun thing, guns are used for war, so it's like
right. And he also just said in last episode, he said, oh, I'd never used a gun on how to handle it, and that was a lie. So maybe, well, I mean, honestly, like he could come across a gun in other assassin situations as well.
I wonder why he's not afraid of them, because even when he got shot in that flashback with Bella, he was already like nonchalant about the whole gun.
He was over it.
Everything. He was just, it's as if he'd been shot so many times prior. Makes me wonder. Or rather concerned.
But be honest, would you like to see a picture of Kieran shot?
Well, is he gonna be shirtless?
I will say, Kieran, when Lauren decked Kieran in episode 50, one of the best moments in the comic, it brings me so much satisfaction seeing Kieran in pain in that scene.
He spit blood. Like, it was bad.
A few more ribs needed to be broken there.
Like, damn. Kieran's blood just like splattered on the bathroom floor forever. Like someone comes in like, oh shit.
I still believe the theory that Lucas was in one of the bathroom stalls.
I can't wait to him. I just need Lucas like finding them in promiscuous situations like Huey. I just knew that.
With his camera and his blackmail device. Anywho, I want to wrap up because it's been a while and it's just a long episode. So, final thoughts on the episode.
Probably the Delaney thing. So, like Shivii pointed out, we actually learn a lot of information from small bits of text in like the Snapdragon pamphlets or like the newspapers and stuff like that. So in 66, we actually found out that during Edward's rule, the ruling class would take steps to limit the free press. So press in Ardhalis is actually very limited. And so that's partly why we don't know that much about the class war and why Lauren doesn't know that much and why she didn't even know it existed, because the press, everything that the press talks about has to go through the king. And if reporters, we find out that 2 reporters who were critical of the king and like the monarchy and like new bills that were implemented, they ended up in jail for being critical of their city. And so which means that the monarchy has control over all the information that comes into Ardhalis and all the information that comes out. With that being said, we know that Snapdragon, there's hardly any files on them, which is odd because there's hardly any other files on any other socialist groups. So what happened to the recordings of the socialist groups? And my theory is that the monarchs got rid of them to stifle any more rebellions in the future. So if the royals and the police and the royals will obviously be working together because the royals control the police, if they're working together and there's no police files on Delaney or any files whatsoever, what happened to Delaney's existence? And my theory is that he was erased by the royals. But why would he want to be erased by the royals? What is the reasoning? Why would they have any reason to completely erase the world of his existence unless Delaney was used to replace someone else, and they couldn't that someone else couldn't be identified? And the series is a little bit dead. That last bit didn't really make sense, but the series is a little bit dead. But my theory is that Delaney was used to replace Abel Sandman's body in the car crash. Because Abel got away, they had a body, but who is the body? They need to make sure that body was unidentifiable as anyone else. And so to make sure that they couldn't identify that person as anyone else, they had to get rid of all the files surrounding that person. So who got rid of this person? So like, if that makes sense, I'm not sure.
I don't know, because Abel says, she asks him what happened to Rama Delaney, and he says, oh, he didn't last too long after that. I think he said after that, but where is it? He didn't last too long and they executed him.
So it would have been between the 2 weeks between Lauren's parents' death and the bombing. And if we're going by the theory that Chandelier Man is Delaney.
Wait, that's a theory?
Yeah, we have a lot of theories.
But that theory wouldn't line up with that one because no, it's in Grey Chapel. So bodies just go, no one even
Wait, that
cares.
was in Grey Chapel? That was in a very fancy building though.
That was in the church.
That was in the church?
That was in the Grey Chapel church that he met the messenger in.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, it was?
I'm pretty sure.
What?
It was the same chandelier. Remember when he looks up to go meet up the
Seriously?
messenger? If he looks up at the ceiling,
I thought he was having a
hung
reverential moment.
This entire time.
Wait, seriously?
You
look that up.
It's traumatizing.
How could you not tell me?
I thought you knew.
I
Traumatizing.
did.
Every time he would go into that church, it's like every time I read it, it would just be like, oh my God.
He could be in the church. I thought it was in his house.
No, it
In
was
his house.
You can see the stained
Probably
glass
wouldn't be
windows and stuff. And the chandelier,
Bruh.
it's the same. And the staircase, isn't there a
Bruh.
staircase as well?
Okay, hold
that leads
up.
up to the podium
What
in the
chapter is
church.
this? What chapter is it killing in?
28. There's one in 28, and then there's another flashback in 78, I think, or 73.
I think it's 78. Okay.
Windows don't.
Or was it 28 that has
Okay.
a flashback?
Let's take a look at the chandelier.
Yeah. Okay. I
Or
see
not
these
28,
windows,
I'm
but they're
sorry.
not stained glass.
Yeah,
They're,
they
it
don't
looks
look
like a
stained glass.
ballroom. It's definitely
Pretty
big
sure
windows.
it's the church. It's the same chandelier. I'm like 99.
All chandeliers look alike, by the way. As someone who's
They
loved with
do.
chandeliers.
It may just be that like Soph is using the same asset.
Let's see if I can find. Was it 45? He gets the.
I mean, the windows are high up. I'll give it that.
Okay. Let's see here.
Okay, I do see what might look like stained glass in the when he says, "Now do it, kill me." There's a little bit of orange there, which looks like might be some stained glass. But the windows look pretty clear, but that might just be the lighting.
Yeah, you can't really see in 45.
It's a different chandelier.
45 is when he's in Great Chapel getting the orders, right? Misdirected mission. Okay. No, where's he getting the mission? In which chapter? It's like right before the end of season 1. Here it is. Yeah.
45.
Yeah. Okay. He's going in.
It looks like a church, though. The windows are too big not to be a
thought it was-
warehouse or a church.
I just thought it meant that he was a super rich person and he had this fancy ballroom in his house.
Same.
That's
And he
a
was like
giant
running.
house.
He was running at that point. So it might have been an apostle.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking also. I don't think it was the church because the church had like very ornate windows. Also, why would he be in a church? Like,
That's true. I don't know. A part of me feels like it still is a church. That would be kind of symbolic if it is a church, because
Yeah.
we have a lot of banners with
Yeah, a lot
like
of church references.
and stuff.
The apostles themselves, that's a church. That's a
but
Yeah.
biblical reference to like, I think Jesus and the 13 or 14 apostles.
Right. I mean, but the fact that they call themselves apostles obviously means that they see their mission as a good mission, right? As a pure mission.
As like
Well, yeah, that's the
yeah.
funny thing about the PS. They're trying to take out a hierarchy, but ultimately gonna just replace one hierarchy with their own.
I mean, that's my total skepticism of utopian movements. I'm like, human beings are human beings. Ain't nothing gonna stop it. Like, it's just gonna, no matter what you try to do, it's always gonna, we're basically gonna revert back to our base nature. It's my pessimistic view of humanity. But actually, I didn't quite finish fully reading up this theory, but I believe it was Runaway No Amalia who talked about the fact that the fandom site, she sees it as like a communist kind of movement, which is would fit in very well because communism started out with great ideals and wanted to help the poor and equalize society, and then they ended up being this horrible reign of terror and even worse than what had been before. So, and obviously scythe, right? The scythe is the symbol of the Communist Party, so that would make a lot of sense.
I'm not really, I don't know that much about like communism and like what and how it's been used, but to really speak on this. But yeah, I would definitely agree that the PS is, they want basically what is communism, a classless society. That's what they want. And the Snapdragon is called a socialist group, and just like communism is just a more radical version of socialism, the PS is a more radical version of Snapdragon. But desperate people go to desperate means. And so at one point, as we found out, like with the press silence, like with the press being silenced and then taxes being raised, eventually probably the massacre, which I also think was ordered by the royals.
Definitely, I got that vibe that Elizabeth was the reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at one point, Snapdragon snaps and a lot of the members become even more radical, and they become the Phantom Scythe, and they just go full communism. They just want no class anymore. Before, we wanted education, we wanted like healthcare, we wanted housing, like fair housing and stuff like that. But now we have been spited for long enough. Now everyone is going down with us. We are not having this class system anymore. We're done with that. We will usher in a new era where everyone is on the same playing field.
I feel like that's just a show because the Phantom Scythe is literally going to fall into the same trap that history has always fallen into, and that is because it's taking this long, there is already a hierarchy inside the Phantom Scythe itself, and there's already rich people, so that they just want to hold power over the new society that they want to create, basically. It's kind of like that selfish desire to be like, if you had the chance to be on a new planet and control like the way society is and being on top, like it's still technically the same, but not.
The Phantom
That's
Scythe.
what the seventh apostle says, right? Isn't that why he wants to break away? Because he says that, right? I remember somebody saying, I think it was the seventh apostle or someone else saying, oh, now everything's the same in the Phantom Scythe, and it's also just the same load of BS.
Yeah, Bella talks so much shit about it. I forget what she says specifically. It's hilarious though. It's just, she sees it as like minuscule, like what they're doing, because the leader doesn't seem to be acting.
I think the leader, like their intentions, they still want the classless society to like help the poor. I think their intentions are still true, but they're very violent in how they get those, in how they want to reach those ends. But I guess they're in a sort of do the means justify the end sort of mentality. But it's obvious that Apostle 7 is just over it. Like they're done. They want to be on top.
Maybe Apostle 7 realized that the leader really didn't care about all that bullshit that he spewed, and he has to take control now because the leader's going to end up killing a lot of people and causing.
7 is the one bombing the city.
I haven't seen like
that's with my theory that Dawkins the apostle, and he's taking the weapons to protect people from the leader, because the leader originally had these weapons ported to him. So I think Dawkins wanted to know what was going on. If Dawkins is the Apostle 7 wants to know what's going on with those weapons to make sure. I have faith in this coup. I do. I have faith that things aren't what we think they are, and that
for the Phantom Scythe, huh?
Well, I think, because the coup is against the leader, not necessarily the people. So I think either there will be bombing and there will be sacrifices, or Apostle 7 is somehow trying to get these weapons for himself so the leader doesn't end up hurting a lot more people.
That would be like in terms of the moral direction of the story. I do think that it would be very cool if they would flip our conceptions. We start out thinking this is bad and this is good, and obviously Lauren's making that journey along with us, and then we could end up switching, which I'm curious about if that would be
right. I'm sure a lot of the Phantom Scythe is bad, but there is a lot of good in the Phantom Scythe as well, and that's that split, that snapdragon that merged, that never did really. They just didn't want to say anything because they don't want to end up like the Sinclairs and dead.
I mean, the question that the question that Kieran brings up in episode 65 and 68 is how much of the Phantom Scythe are terrorists and how much of the Phantom Scythe is made up of people unable to provide for themselves and their families. How many people in the Phantom Scythe are just desperate, failed by a system that was never designed to help them in the first place. And they want that system gone. That's why they're in the Phantom Scythe, because imagine how terrible your living conditions must be that terrorism is a better prospect than your current situation.
And all it takes is one paycheck to, solidify their decision to join.
Yeah, they get money from this. They're getting a stable income from being in the Phantom Scythe. They're not getting that income anywhere else. The Phantom Scythe is giving the lower class an opportunity that they've been spited out of their entire lives. And so it's no wonder why the Phantom Scythe has grown so much.
And this actually happens like around the world. It really
Mhm.
it does. So
Yeah.
anywho, I do want to wrap this up because it's
Yeah.
late.
Yeah.
And we are going to be doing many episodes, and we'll have lots of opportunities to keep discussing theories. But I'm going to end the recording, and then we'll do a little bit of chatting.